right, guys. I just got finished watching this or listening to Daddy by Korn. And I have to say, 100%, there is a trigger warning with this. I will remind you again, but there is a trigger warning with this. If you have gone through some type of abuse, if you've been sexually harassed, sexually assaulted, this will trigger you. You are warned. So let's get into this very, very deep video. Members of the Fly Music Society, what is going on? We are back with another reaction video. Today we're going to do something different. I know a lot of these reactions have been me kind of discovering new artists. In fact, all of my reactions on this channel so far have been that. We are going to be listening to a song of a band that I'm very familiar with, and that is Korn. I've seen Korn a few times. I've listened to, all their hits and some not so many hits, but I haven't heard this one. And a friend of mine told me that I should listen to this song, and it is called Daddy. Apparently, this is a very, very tough listen. It's emotional. Apparently, it's something that Jonathan Davis has gone through. It's very vulgar, it's very graphic, and it's very traumatizing. And this is him letting out his emotions in that. I will say that this may be a trigger for a lot of people, so there is a trigger warning. I'm most likely, in when I'm editing, going to be putting a trigger warning at the beginning of the video. But just be aware. This is very traumatic stuff. I don't know if I'm ready, but we're gonna get into this. We're gonna talk about it. So for those of you who are new to the channel, what we do here is we listen to the song. I'll interject here and there for things I believe are important. Then at the end of the song, we talk about the message and we talk about the music. I do have a Patreon. For those of you who are interested in my Patreon, you will get exclusive access to videos like this one, the very least 24 hours. There's also special perks on there, like being able to go to the top of the list for reacted songs or reacted videos, and a patron shout out of the day. So those are all cool perks that you can get on my Patreon. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. This is not a music video. It's just one I found with lyrics. So let's get into it. Very disturbing. There you go. I'm ready if you guys are. Sounds like a church chant.
Remember, I will always love you. I'm your son.
So the thing I like about Jonathan Davis's voice is it's very unique, right? It almost sounds like a yodel, right? It was very prevalent in Freak on a Leash. That it's like his vibrato is very, for lack of a better term, it's like almost a little bit whiny, but it makes his voice very unique. But what I liked about that, obviously that portion of it is very produced with the background vocals. I don't know if that's just him, but it's definitely him also in the backing track. It's very like church chant type of thing. So far, I don't know what the vibe of this song is going to be. It's Korn, so it could be a lot of different things. Got that deep drop B bass line.
Little child, looking so pretty. Come out and play. I'll be your daddy. Innocent child, looking so sweet. Rape your mind, and your flesh I'll eat. You wait, I feel daddy, hey, that's a child I do. That's a god boy in for your own child.
Okay. This is probably the heaviest thing I've ever heard. It's not sugarcoating. It's not being metaphorical. It's literally telling you what's happening or what happened. If this actually happened to Jonathan Davis, the fact that he's able to let this out in this forum on their first album, crazy, absolutely crazy. Like, there's people that don't want to talk to it to their closest friends, and he's putting this out there for millions of people to hear. I'm sure this is going to get emotional. Having 3 kids myself, I can't imagine doing anything like this to not only my own kids but any child, and to have a child to have to go through that is just crazy. Keep going.
Looking so pretty. Come and play. I'll be your daddy. You raped, I feel dirty and hurt as a child. Tied down, that's a good boy. And fuck, you're a child. I scream, no one hears me. And I'm not alive. My God, saw you watching. Mommy, why?
I feel like there's been other songs that Korn has done where Jonathan Davis has essentially like had the motion in his voice, right? Hey Daddy is kind of talking about his dad, and we could feel the emotion in that. But I feel like that Tell Me Why there was like the emotions getting the best of him. I find it very hard to talk about, like, the depression and stuff. I can talk about anxiety, like just mental illness in general, because I feel most people go through that, including myself. I've gone through it. I can speak on it. But when it comes to something like this, I can only talk about what I can imagine, because I didn't go through this, right? I wasn't on either end of this. But to hear his pain, just asking his mother why she didn't stop it, right? I don't even know what to say. It's just horrific to think that somebody went through this, but it's also, I feel like it's empowering to know that he was able to let this out for other people who went through this to be able to relate and to be able to have a voice about it. So I think in that regard, it's good, but this is a tough listen, guys. Honestly, this is the first listen or the first song that we've done on the channel where it's like I kind of want it to end. Like they're creating an uneasy feeling in the song on purpose. Like, that's the whole point. You should feel disgusted. You should feel gross. You should feel creeped out. That's exactly what you should, because that's what's happening. Dad was a creep. All right. Like, normally I would dance this part, but I don't want to. I don't know if you guys heard that in the background, him screaming at the top of his lungs for his mom, but just thinking about my own kid going through that, like, makes me angry. Like, it makes my blood boil. But I don't know what happened with his dad, if he's still alive, if he's dead or whatever. Like, and I wish ill on no person, but I do think that anybody that does anything like this to an innocent child is the shit stain of the earth, and honestly deserve way worse than what they get. I don't I don't want to get into politics. I don't believe in the death penalty. I don't believe in a lot of, I wouldn't say I don't believe in it. I think the death penalty is too easy for a lot of people, and this is one of those people. Anybody who's like a child molester, anybody who assaults a child in any way, like I think they need to suffer in prison, where even the worst of the worst look down on these people. Like that should tell you something, right? If the scum of the earth, and that's just what they're called. I don't necessarily think all people in prison are evil, right? But if the worst of the worst people, generally speaking, think that these people are the worst of the worst, that should tell you something right there. I don't think I'm going to stop anymore because I just want to get through it, but... That I'm not a liar. That's the shitty thing about, it's mostly for women, to be honest. I think it's glorified for men a little bit when they get, like, a man can't get, but they can. I feel like especially when it's a woman talking about assault or anything like that, they tend to be shot down. It's first, but the first thought is, oh, they're lying. They're in it for the bag or whatever, right? Obviously, when it comes to kids, it's a little different because I don't think they would lie about it happening. They would probably lie about it, like saying it didn't happen when it did if they were scared. But I don't think a child will lie about it, right? But I feel like that line is very powerful because so many times people think when people are talking about this, or especially women, that they're lying about it. And that I feel like that gives them shame when they shouldn't feel shame for what happened. It's not their fault that somebody decided to be a horrific person and do this to them. This is too much. This is too heavy for what I was expecting. I don't really know what else to say. %, not acting, guys. say, but I'm letting this go. I have 2 minutes left. I think it's... I think it's... I have mixed feelings about him being so vulnerable like that. On one hand, I think you are feeling his pain, right? And I haven't been to therapy for something like this, but I know it's very common for at times to relive that trauma to figure out why it makes you feel a certain way. But that's the sound of somebody who's going through a mental breakdown, right? I mean, he's essentially reliving the countless times that happened. And sorry, guys, I'm not looking at the camera right now because it's very hard for me to... Let me say this. I don't want to talk about this because of how horrific it is. But at the same time, I think that things like this should be talked about because they do happen. And we can talk about music that's fun. Oh, it's so happy. That was a cool guitar riff. That was cool. Like, oh, look, he's doing arpeggios. Like, sometimes the music doesn't fucking matter and what he's talking about matters. And this is one of those times. And I know I said kind of that on Higher End, but this is something that too many people go through, too many kids go through, and nobody talks about it. And you heard him go through anguish, you heard him go through sadness, you heard him go through shame, and then he went to anger. I think something like this is far more powerful than any other song. I wouldn't say any other song, but I feel like this is much more powerful. Listening to somebody go through reliving their trauma, I just think it's so powerful to hear that. As uncomfortable as horrific, as traumatic it might be to hear it, I think it's something that more people need to do. It's not about glorifying what happened. It's not about, bringing that person who did it to the forefront. It's about just seeing how people go through things. People hurt. That's all. They overdubbed him crying further away from the mic in the background. It's very subtle. But. A woman singing in the background. Assuming that's supposed to be like his mom singing to him. Because that'll fix it. There's nothing to watch, so I'm closing my eyes, trying to imagine how he's feeling. And this calm right here is the calm after the trauma, right? Everything quiets down. Everything's going to go back to normal. But it slowly builds up and slowly builds up until you explode. Like I said, I don't have much to say about this because this is not something I've gone through. And this is not, I just know I couldn't imagine any kids going through this, but my kids having to go through this. And I sure as hell know that if it was me, and my significant other would never ever do anything like this, but if it were me and my significant other was doing something like this, I would turn them in immediately. Turn a blind eye. I'm not gonna say it's just as bad, but it's definitely not good to do that. I wanna see what people are saying in the comments, because there's a lot of people saying that, like, I went through this resonates with me so well, I cried listening to this. Like, I feel that, man. Like, it doesn't matter how, I've seen so many things online about, oh, it was just this type of assault, oh, it wasn't as bad because it was only oral, or whatever it might be. Sexual assault is assault. There is no tiers, like TIER. There's no tiers to what kind of assault it is. You either were assaulted or you weren't. This, oh, it's not that bad, is ridiculous. And I've mentioned before, empathy is something missing in our lives. And I think this is one of those things that we need to have. We have a lot of work to do with believing people when they say something like this happens. I want to talk about the music a tad, because there are parts of it that made sense. This comment is very interesting about how it says, the interesting thing about this song is that was real tears. We all knew that. He was going through his experience all over again, and the bandmates were very disturbed by his reaction, that they all went in and gave him a big hug during those vocal parts. Man, that it's crazy how close-knit a band can be, and you just don't know. I mean, I know this was their first album, but you just don't know what somebody's going through. As close as somebody is to you, just don't know. That's why I always tell, like, I always ask my friends, I ask my wife, like, how are you doing? Are you okay? How are you feeling mentally? Like, I ask those questions. If you can't ask those questions, then you're not really a friend, or you're not really a significant other to that person, because that is important. So many trauma with any type of mental illness, like, a lot of shame comes with that. Like, I shouldn't feel this way. Look, I have all these good things in my life. Why do I feel this way? Sometimes you have to pull that out of people to get them to tell you what's happening. And I feel like, honestly, it is the responsibility of people who are close to to people who have gone through these things to ask questions. That was probably the heaviest thing I've ever heard on this, and I never wanted anything to end quicker than that. Let's talk about the music really fast. I think Korn's really good at relaying the emotion of a song. Obviously, the guitars in this, very deep, very dark, very, very hardcore. When the deed was happening, when he was explaining it, and when he was going through anguish, right, you had the kind of just the random plucks of the strings and high-pitched squeals and stuff, which I'm assuming was after the fact, if that comment was correct. It was put in after. But this essentially was him reliving this whole ordeal, and you can hear the pain, you can hear the anguish in his voice. And that crying at the end, man, that was 100% pure emotion of all of those feelings coming back. You tuck those things down so deep, so long, and when it finally comes out, it's like it's brand new all over again. That was one of the most disturbing, dreary, dreadful, hardcore things I've ever listened to, because it's based on somebody's story and how disgusting it is. No self-plug. No funny joke to end this. Please ask your friends how they're doing. Please ask your friends, your significant other, if they're okay. And please remember that, especially remember that good vibes are contagious.